Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Pondering Christianity. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's dive in. Can God be both just and merciful? This question appears like a natural and easy way to defeat God in a battle of logic. Simply put, mercy is the suspension of justice, meaning justice won't be carried out. Envision a criminal standing on trial for a great crime, and the judge gets up to the stand and announces, "This person is forgiven for all their crimes." Now that would be awesome for the criminal who has committed the crimes to be freed from their prosecution. However, the victims of the criminal's acts may have a contrary opinion. The victims would claim that it isn't fair that the criminal is receiving mercy, as of course, it isn't justice. This occurrence points to a greater source of authority that the person in this example is appealing to. Therefore, you can't be both just and merciful. Or can you? Let's look at this quickly from two angles. Firstly, how God can do both. You see, with sin, which is a crime against good and ultimately God, as He is the authority of what is good, God personifies all the characteristics of goodness, mercy, and justice, ironically making the list together. That said, we still have this paradox of how to be both just and merciful. Simply put, we sin, God forgives, but not without someone paying the penalty for this sin. Enter in Jesus, God the Son. Now, I understand the Trinity is a mind-bending thought, and for the sake of time, I'm going to take the liberty here to just say that Jesus is in fact God. That said, God, in the form of Jesus, steps in place to take the just punishment for our sins as Jesus, which in turn rewards us with God's mercy. Jesus ultimately becomes the bridge through His sacrifice, which allows both justice and mercy to be satisfied in the eyes of God. Now, the second part, a strong objection I held as an atheist, was, and this comes as an obvious observation, but to be crass, why God requires death, and namely His own Son's death. Couldn't He have simply just changed the rules? He is the author of all the known universe, is He not? Wouldn't it simply be in His power? Well, no, He couldn't change the rules on this one. Remember earlier the part about me mentioning God's nature? God is the ultimate standard and authority of what is good, and namely in this instance, what is both justice and mercy. If He were to alter the rules to say just simply forgive with no penalty, He is simply merciful, however, He is not just, as wrong goes unpunished. Now, before you decide that's a reality you want to live in, why don't you ask yourself the question, do you wish to live in a world where all sin, all wrong, is not held or pursued by justice? We like the good guys because they always, or at least the majority of the time, win. They beat up the bad guys in the name of justice. There are justice systems all over the world that work hard to maintain a balance between the good done in society and the bad, albeit with many warranted critiques. That said, I think it's safe to say that society would like to keep justice. How about the other direction of no mercy? This would mean God could choose to have no mercy and simply uphold the justice attribute of good, which means sin everywhere would be purged. Yeah, I don't think anyone would like that option either. Also, this would leave the mercy aspect of God's nature also wanting. Finally, the argument could be made why God couldn't simply just make this one exception. You know, just forgive the world of all of its sin just this once, please? Another valid point. However, the answer is this. God is perfect. Perfection allows no exceptions. One blunder defeats perfection. A very difficult standard to uphold, however, God does it, and rightfully so. He would be a disappointing God, honestly, if He wasn't perfect. Thus, He requires that justice and mercy are both fully satisfied, which ultimately lends itself to the beauty of Jesus. I would urge you greatly to consider accepting Jesus' gift of standing in your place for sin. That said, this concludes this week's Pondering Christianity. Give the video a like if you liked it and a thumbs down if you didn't. But if you didn't like it, I ask one thing simply, give your reasons below. And I will do my best to get an answer to you. I'll see you guys next week. Keep on pondering.